Good morning. Let me call to order the Finance Committee meeting of April 1st. It's 9:43. I guess we should go around the dais again just for introductions.
Brittany Norris for the administration.
Colleen Hampsey, Council Research.
Mary Stefopoulos, Office of General Counsel.
Philip Peterson, Council Auditor's Office.
Kim Taylor, Council Auditor.
Good morning. Raul Arias, District 11.
Will Lane, Just District 3 now.
Terrence Freeman at large, Group 1, friend of President Randy White.
Ron Salem, Group 2 at large.
Nick Howland at large, Group 3.
Good morning. Rory Diamond, District 13, The Beaches.
Good morning. Jacoby Pittman, District 10.
Randy White, District 12, just visiting.
Joe Carlucci, District 5, just visiting.
Matt Carlucci, at large, Group 4, just visiting. Thank you.
Okay. Just an announcement. At our meeting in 2 weeks, we'll have a presentation on our homeless initiative. It's now at the 6-month mark, and I've asked Chief Powers and JSO and related to come to us and kind of give us a status report. Let me go first to the presentation on the independent external audit. No, we just did that. I'm sorry. The discussion on the appraisal of the 801 West Bay. Mr. Peterson, you want to review the chart that you developed?
Sure, through the chair to the committee. So in front of you is a one-page handout landscape summary of the appraisals for downtown properties that are under consideration. The top 3 boxes are the 3 different appraisals that were obtained for the 801 West Bay Street property, also known as the Interline Brands property. The first was obtained by DIA through Colliers, evaluation date of December 6th of 2024. You'll see 3 values there. First, under a sales comparison approach of $5.3 million, income approach of $5.4 million, and so a reconciled value of $5.35 million. The second row is the appraisal that was obtained by Gateway Jacks through CBRE. Approximate same valuation date, December 10th, 2024. This one was a little bit more in-depth due to the appraiser valuing the parcel as 3 different parcels. So there's a parking lot to the western portion, there's the building in the middle, and then there's a parking lot to the eastern portion. And the appraiser put values as if the western and eastern parking lots were legally subdivided from the office site and were permitted for development individually. So you'll see the land value, the parking lots had a value of $3.9 million, the as-is office building of $2.4 million, and a stabilized office building of $5.6 million. They also included hypothetical investment values if the office site were to be leased, and if they were to be leased to a current tenant with a July 10th rent commencement date. So that hypothetical investment value of the as-is office site of $4.1 million versus $4.675 if there was a lease in effect to begin July 10th. The third row is the third appraisal that DIA obtained at the end of last week. That was performed by Comp Pro Consultants with a valuation date of March 18th, 2025. And you'll see they had a sales comparison approach of $6.81 million, an income approach of $6.66 million, so a reconciled value of $6.75 million. Looking at the 2 bottom rows, these are the 2 properties that are the subject of the proposed land swap and the appraisals associated with that. So the Riverfront Plaza development, also this is the northeastern portion of what was the old landing. This was performed by Colliers, valuation date of December 23rd, 2024, and they valued that 1.2-acre parcel at $3.41 million. The second parcel is the East Landing parking lot, which is just east and slightly under the Main Street Bridge and the Main Street Bridge off-ramps, also performed by Colliers. Same valuation date. It's a 1.77-acre parcel. However, this parcel is encumbered by 3 separate easements. There's a 30-foot JEA sewer easement that runs along the southern portion of the property that is supposedly very difficult and very expensive to move or reroute. There's an access and truck easement on the eastern portion of the property adjacent to the Hyatt property, and then also a permanent access easement on the eastern portion of the property as well. The property is also subject to a 50-foot setback from not only the river, but also the Main Street Bridge ramps, and then also is subject to height restrictions from the 50, I believe it's 50 foot from the river is a maximum 45-foot height development, and then 100 foot back from the river is a maximum 75-foot development. Once you get past that 100 foot, it's an unlimited height development. So all those factors taken into consideration, the appraiser put a value of $1.62 million. So combined between those two parcels would have a value of just over $5 million as considered as part of the proposed land swap.
Thank you. Mr. Peterson, I appreciate you putting all that together. I think it's very helpful to have it all on one page. Just to open this up, I introduced legislation that began the $4 million as a starting point. There was a great deal of discussion about wanting an appraisal considering the land on both sides of the interline property. We now have that. That's the 6.75 reconciled value. My goal would be to purchase this property and get it into the hands of the University of Florida as soon as possible. Mr. Mola, are you out there somewhere? I'm sorry, I couldn't see you. Can you just come forward and kind of state your position as it stands today, please? As I said, I was hoping that with the newest appraisal that we could move forward with an acquisition now that we have all these prices, but I wanted to get his position.
Good morning. Good morning, council members. Thanks for
Can you state your name, please?
Yeah, Brian Mall, CEO of Gateway Jacks at 100 North Laura Street. First, starting with the appraisal, in general, it looked pretty good. There's one element that has to relate to the land and how the land was valued. We just, received and had the chance to review this over the weekend. It appears that this third appraisal has used a number that we want to talk to the appraisers about, or have our appraiser talk to the CBRE appraiser talk to their appraisers about, just to better understand the difference in value. We've approached the DIA about doing that as soon as possible. Hopefully that can happen this week, just so we can put that to bed and better understand where that's coming from. So that aside, we, as I've stated before, we believe that the swap is still the best outcome for the city, but we are, of course, at the end of the day, willing to sell the property if that's what council would rather do. But we would ask, as we have the opportunity to meet with as many of you as you want on the appraisal and discuss the merits of the appraisal, that we have the opportunity to have this swap heard in front of council as well.
Okay. I've got some, Mr. Lanin.
Thank you, Chair. Just to reiterate my comments I made last Tuesday night, I supported your legislation to purchase that because with what was before us, I still think that's the best option, because to me it comes down, it's about a roughly equal trade if you do the land, but then that's going to come back with a very large cash incentive request, is my understanding. So that's why I thought buying outright. But I'm just going to reiterate, I still feel like we're doing this piecemeal. We do not know what the total cost of this is. Like, we're up to $58 million now in committed funding. And I don't know if it's a DIA question or what, just like, when will we know what the full cost of this UF campus is going to be? Because I understand, I think the legislation's coming in May that'll then have an additional ask. So just trying to get a sense of the timing on that, when we'll know the true cost. And I apologize, Finance Chair, I know that's getting a little off scope of just the land appraisal, but I think we need to keep on wondering what this total cost is, because we do not have a lot of capacity for much else in the budget in future years.
I think there's a calendar that President White is working on to bring all this information to us over the next 60 days or so, as I understand it. Joe Carlucci, you're recognized.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. So, yeah, through the chair to Mr. Mall. Oh, where'd you go? Oh, okay. Sorry, Jessica, I couldn't. There you No, thank you. Thanks for coming down. The appraisal kind of came back sort of where I figured it would sort of be, kind of somewhere in the middle. So I guess two questions for you. number one, how long do you need for CBRE to talk to Compro, whatever? How long do y'all need to sort through the differences?
I imagine that can be a pretty quick conversation, depending on what the third appraiser, depending on how they view the comments from CBRE. I would imagine this can be a pretty quick conversation. We just need to put them in touch, or ask the DIA to put them in touch.
Okay, and is the goal to have that conversation through the chair to Mr. Mull? Is the goal there to say, let's come up with a number that you're comfortable with?
Yeah, I think it would be to have a mutually agreed upon third appraisal from both the city and for us on the value of the site. Correct.
Okay, cool. I would like to see the final number on what y'all are good with, and then second question is just more of a statement, maybe a question. So 6.75 million would basically give you and your investors a 68.75% return on investment in 6 months. So just to let everyone know, that's a 68, almost 70% return on your money in 6 months. So I guess my question is, that should be an easy yes. Number two, it's sort of sounding like the land swap deal, if that's what y'all favor, would be even higher rate of return because that's what you favor. I'm assuming, correct? So I don't know if there's like a rate of return that you can bring that would show that y'all are willing to lose money. I don't think y'all want to lose money. So my point is, we buy the 801, we buy the 801 West Bay Street, you and your investors get 68% return. If you don't go that route, then obviously there's something kind of not being said that the riverfront parcel will generate an even higher return at our expense, mainly because we're the ones that are going to be coming to the table with around $20 million. So, yeah, I don't know if you want to address that or not, but that's sort of what I'm trying to figure out.
Excuse me, sorry, I'm going to jump in. Cindy Trimmer, 1 Independent Drive, Suite 1200, on behalf of Gateway. Where we are right now, you have legislation that is going to be pending in front of you that is going to come in about May, we understand, so that OGC has time to draft all of the associated documents so that you have it in front of you. And it sounds like the questions you're getting at are going to be answered more fully when that legislation is in front of you, and you can look at these two things side by side and make a fully educated decision, which is a better deal holistically for the city. And that is what we have been saying all along. We really appreciate that Councilman Salem perfected this one option so that the council doesn't feel like they're in a bind, so that you only have one option when the swap legislation's in front of you. So now that you've final voted on that, it'll be in front of you and you'll have the ability to act on that immediately at that point. But we still are asking that you have this other option out there. There are obviously questions about it. We've had a lot of questions asked of us. We're still under the cone of silence with DIA, so we haven't been able to make all of the rounds and go through all of the underwriting that we've done that we believe will be able to show you it is a better holistic option, but we just can't do that right now. So I don't want to go too far down the path of trying to go into answering the metrics of the swap, because that's not in front of you today, and you don't have the full underwriting and everything in front of you today, but you will. And then you'll have both options and can make a decision when you have both options in front of you.
Yeah, and if I may, since I still have the floor through the chair to Ms. Trimmer, yeah, I'm totally comfortable with that. I don't have any heartburn over it. I'm just making more of an observation. And what's interesting is, we didn't have two options. DIA, more or less, didn't have two options. They were given one option, and they had to vote it up or down. So, again, that's more of a procedural thing, but we are where we are now, and we have two options on the table, and we'll see which one makes more sense. But thank you again for being here, you guys, and I really do appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I have one more speaker. But let me make a couple points. When I introduced my legislation, I felt like I was a lone ranger because I wasn't sure where the rest of the council was on the purchase. I have been inundated with phone calls from people in the real estate development industry. I have had not one and some of these are ex-DIA employees, some of these are ex-DIA board members who have said the land swap is not a good deal for the city. And please continue to champion the purchase, because it's really what's best for the city. That land should be developed and put out to bid separately. So with that kind of feedback and not being a real estate person, I'm going to continue to push for the purchase. Mr. Mole has agreed to meet with me, and I think others, about trying to come up with a price for the purchase. He doesn't want to negotiate in public. I respect that part of all this process. So I'm going to set up a meeting with him, and I'm going to continue to try to get a price, and we'll see where the council decides to go. The last speaker is Matt Carlucci.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thanks for allowing me to speak. Duty calls me back at Hendricks Avenue, so I'm going to have to scat after this, but I don't have any opinion right now. I would just really ask my colleagues on the council, before you make your minds up, we don't have a second option yet. We know somewhat of what it is, but there's no development agreement there. There's still a cone of silence. And also, if I'm not mistaken, if the city, if the council approves the whatever million it is that Councilmember Salem has put forth, and I commend you on that, Councilman Salem, putting our consideration. But we haven't heard from the other side. We're not even sure at this point if they're a willing seller. We think they will, but I don't think they've come right out and said that. But the other thing is, if we go the route of buying the property, that takes DIA out of the equation. And that is a huge, huge concern to me, because nobody's better and better equipped to work on a development deal like this than the DIA. It would be our city real estate division. I think it would be extraordinary on something of this size in downtown to not involve the Downtown Investment Authority in the actual swap and or purchase. So I'm just throwing that out there. I want to see the two comparisons side by side, but I will tell you I have a real concern when I know the DIA will not be a part of it if it's bought outright. And I thank you for what you're doing, and Mr. Chair, thanks for recognizing me. I'm going back to my office. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Trimmer. Let's move on to the agenda. I've got some speaker cards, some of which may have scattered due to my previous comments. I'm going to give each speaker a minute because we have a full agenda today. Kiwana Gilbert, are you still here? Carissa Lepley. Is that her? No, okay. She's not here. Pablo Diaz de Sandy.
Good morning. Pablo Diaz de Sandy. My address is on record. I am the vice chair of the Public Service Grants Council. Together with some of my colleagues that are here today, want to speak against the rule amendment that you see on 191. We put a lot of work in the council to assess all of the different options, to hear the feedback from the agencies, and got a report from UNF that helped us to make an assessment on how to make a fair distribution of the public service grants that we are entrusted with handling and assigning. All of this work really has put us in a much better position to make sure that we don't make bad use, that we really distribute to more agencies the funds that we have through a restriction that is included in the amendments that we have proposed to not let agencies submit applications for more than one grant per category. So you'll hear more from my colleagues. Thank you very much for letting me speak.
Thank you, sir. Major Biggers, are you still here? Left. Tom Geismar.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I am here representing the Public Service Grants Council. I live at 13125 Wexford Hollow Road North in Jacksonville, and I'm here to speak to the amendment to reduce from 150 to 100,000 the maximum that we could award. I'm against that proposal. I think that thinning the pot is going to reduce the services that we're giving to our most vulnerable people. And we are their neighborhood. The City Council, the Public Service Grants Council, and the phenomenal agencies we fund to provide services to those people. We have to be good neighbors. We don't want to thin the pot. If anything, we want to fatten the pot. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Dr. Joy Hervey.
Good morning. I serve as the chair of the PSG Council. I just want to ask the rest of my council members who are here to stand, please, so that you can see we came to support this bill and to thank Councilmember Lanin for bringing it. Thank you. I just wanted to state unequivocally that the nonprofit sector is essential to the health of this city. There's been some messaging that we've heard recently that calls into question the practice of receiving or relying on grant funding, that's somehow a sign of poor management, and that's simply not true. Similar to a corporation, the best practice for nonprofits is to diversify the funding that they have available, and so responsible and effective acquisition and management of grants is actually a sign of good nonprofit leadership. And with respect to the PSG funds, grants are essential to starting, maintaining, and growing effective programs that meet the needs of our most vulnerable populations. And so we solicit your support for Bill 191, and thank you.
Thank you. Jim Kowalski. Is Jim still here? Daniel Henry.
Hi, my name is Daniel Henry. My address is on file. I serve as the Bylaws Committee Chair for the PSG Council, and I just want to spend my time talking about the process that we took to be able to come to the bill that you have before you. We spent almost 4 months reviewing the entire PSG chapter within the Ordinance Code. We spent a considerable amount of time soliciting input from agencies and nonprofits, and the general feedback that they gave us, in addition to ensuring that we had some changes within the Ordinance Code, is to do small changes at a time. They're working in an environment in which funding from governmental services and from agencies is becoming very difficult for them to be able to receive. When we did address this particular issue in terms of reducing the amount of awards that they were available to them, many of them had grave concerns about it. So I would ask this committee that before they make a decision to incorporate the Rules Committee change, that they solicit agency input to get a better understanding of where it is.
Thank you, Mr. Henry. Okay, we're ready to get into the agenda. If you'll turn to page 3 in order to accommodate Councilmember Joe Carlucci. Page 3, item number 5, 2025-102. I have a motion and a second on the neighborhood substitute. Item number 5, page 3. I have a motion and a second on the neighborhood substitute. Mr. Peterson, do you want to explain?
Through the chair, I'll do my best to be brief. The neighborhood substitute amends section 111-760, that's the ordinance portion of the tree fund, to allow ordinance code funds to be used for salary and benefits of not only the city arborists that it already pays for, but also landscape architects, additional arborists, and urban foresters, with those positions being reviewed for necessity by the Tree Commission prior to forwarding a recommendation to the mayor and the council. It would also allow the ordinance code funds to be used for to purchase equipment necessary for the positions to perform their assigned duties related to tree plantings, projects, and activities that utilize both the ordinance and charter funding, with any equipment expenditure over $75,000 being reviewed for necessity by the Tree Commission prior to forwarding a recommendation to the mayor and the council. It also amends section 656-1206 as it relates to the replacement, removal, relocation of protected trees to reduce the minimum size to replace removed exceptional specimen trees and protected live oaks from a required 4-inch caliper tree to a 2-inch caliper tree, and then allowing for the grouping of smaller caliper inch trees upon certification from the city arborist or urban forester, satisfactory to the chief that each tree within that less than 10-foot grouping area has a reasonable chance of survival. And then lastly, providing a waiver of the ordinance code tree mitigation fees as an incentive for the development of affordable housing or workforce housing. And lastly, amend section 656-1208 as it relates to the replacement of trees for illegally removed trees to strike the requirement that they be at a 4 caliper inch tree. And then also corrects various scriveners throughout the legislation.
Councilmember Diamond.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I do want to hear from the bill sponsor, so I'm not trying to step on you, but I just want to be clear. I can't support the substitute unless we remove Section 1A, and the issue here is that we're trying to shift money that's supposed to be for trees and use it for salaries, and that I understand what they're trying to do, but this is a shell game of trying to increase the size and scope of government within the tree fund money, and so I'll make that amendment to the substitute to remove Section 1A, and then I can support the rest of this happily because I understand the purpose. I'll make that. I'll make the motion to amend the substitute to remove Section 1A.
Is there a second? Question. Sure. On his.
It's on the neighborhood substitute, not the potential.
Well, let's. I think we need to deal with his proposed amendment to see if there's a second.
I'll second it for discussion.
Okay, there's a second. Discussion on the Diamond Amendment. Mr. Lanin.
Thank you. So I guess both on the Diamond Amendment and the substitute. So my understanding, I guess through the chair to Councilmember Carlucci, are we actually adding people? My understanding was now the tree fund is going to be able to fund these salaries. So there was potential general fund reduction, correct? Or
through the chair, no, there's no general fund reduction at all. That's the beauty of this bill. And currently, the bill stands, it allows payments for salary and benefits and whatever else, but only for one city arborist in the city of Jacksonville, which is over 800 square miles. That's the problem. So just to speak to that real quick, we can't plant enough trees. It's over $20 million worth of trees. You can't plant that with one person. You have to allow more people to get to put to work, because we have, again, over $20 million that's just sitting there, and it will continue to sit there. So I saw this as a good opportunity to put taxpayer money to work with no additional cost incurred on the general fund.
So through the chair to Councilman Carlucci, we are adding people then, but it's cost neutral to the general fund. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. I mean, I'll support this, and I've talked about this fund in the past as well as the building inspection fund. We have these two huge buckets of money. I think the tree fund's like 20-ish million, building inspection fund's 50-ish million. So in this case, since it is allowing us to use a fund that seems to go up despite our best efforts to spend more and plant trees, in this case, I am okay with that. So I'd support the neighborhood substitute as is.
Okay, I've got several people in the queue. Let me go to Mary first. Mary, you dropped off. Did you? Mr. Peterson.
Through the chair to the committee, just want to clarify one thing. This the neighborhood substitute would allow for additional positions. You are not adding any positions through this legislation. Those positions would have to come at a later time. You're just authorizing the use of those funds to fund positions. Just want to make sure that was clear.
Joe, Councilmember Carlucci, did you want to?
Well, through the chair, thank you, Mr. Peterson. Again, it is that's a public works decision if they want to add it. But right now, to Councilmember Diamond's point, yeah, there was illegal legislation that said, oh, you can't use it for X, Y, and Z. We're expanding that to say, no, you can. We will allow it to be used for this much staff instead of this much staff. So that's all this bill is doing. We're not actually going out and hiring those people. That's a public works decision. Thank you.
Councilmember Arias.
Thank you, Chair. To the auditors, this new position, well, obviously we're not adding new positions just to the ability, but if we were to add new positions, is there going to be a cap as to how much of a percentage we could actually use from the tree fund? Because ultimately, the mission of the tree fund is to actually plant trees, and I don't want to take away from that. Now, obviously, we have over $20 million in there, so there's definitely excess dollars there. But my worry is that if we add these new positions, how many can we add? What kind of, is there a cap of how much dollars we could use from that fund? And additionally, these new positions, we're going to have to fund them every year now moving forward. Is it going to come out of the general fund or is it going to come out of the tree fund every year? Whoever could answer that question. Thank you.
Through the chair to Councilor Arias. So the language that was included in the NCS substitute just says that the funds can be used to pay the salary and benefits of city landscape architects, city arborists, and city urban foresters. So there's no limitation to the number of positions as long as what their whole job requirement is related to planting the trees as it relates to the tree fund or the charter fund.
All right, thank you. And
if I can just add to that, ultimately, what we wanted to do was sort of not micromanage the tree commission, let them sort of have their own say, because at the end of the day, we don't know how many. They are going to know how many. They're not going to go out and hire 6 different people. But it also, in the bill, it says that the ones that are hired from the tree fund can only be serving tree mitigation services. So you can't hire a landscape architect, urban forester, city arborist, and then just go out and work for Public Works. That's what got us in the lawsuit in the first place. So that won't happen.
Through the chair, while I still have the mic, I guess my concern would be, let's say they're the ones that are hiring these positions, right? Is there a way that council could approve them? Because ultimately, what I want to make sure is that not only are they not hiring just an abundance of positions just to hire them, but then also we have to be mindful of the upcoming budgets, right? Because these are new salaries, new benefits now that we're going to have incur in the city. So I want to make sure that we make the final recommendation or the final vote on those recommendations, if anything.
Through the
You
chair.
want to respond to that?
Yeah. If that's appropriate. I mean, I don't have any heartburn over that at all. If you want to, if there's some way to do that, but again, I think it has to be said loud and clear that none of this is affecting the general fund whatsoever. So, and again, the tree fund, it's pulling in about $6 million a year, guys. $6 million. Okay, you could hire 5 people, and you wouldn't even make a dent in the new revenue. So just keep that in mind. So, Mr. Peters, through the chair.
Through the chair to the committee, so this fund comes before you at budget time, and it includes the position that is already there. So the new positions would be looked at on an annual basis as part of the budget process for these dollars.
I'm going to jump in. There are a couple of people who haven't spoken for the first time. I spent 4 years on the tree commission in my first term, gave it up when I got into the leadership. The factor limiting the number of trees is staff, and those arborists and such. I mean, we could move a lot more trees in this community if they had this staff. I wish I'd have done this 4 years ago. It's a great bill, and I would urge you to vote against the amendment and keep it as is. Let me go for the first time, Ms. Pittman.
To the chair, I also want to ask, when you were on the tree committee, my other concern is we're planting trees, but there are a lot of trees that need to be taken down and replaced. And from what I understand before, there wasn't a line item budget for maintenance of those trees. And, when we know better, we do better over a period of time. And I'm just wondering if there's an opportunity where there could be put a line item in the budget where it can maintain trees, especially in urban areas or in areas that have had trees that have been planted over the years, but those trees need to be taken down and put new trees and then maintained. I'm just wondering if there is an opportunity to put that in this bill as well, Councilman Carlucci. Can anyone answer that question for me?
Through the chair to Councilwoman Pittman. So the ordinance code already allows for up to 25% of the amount that is budgeted within the general fund to come out of the tree fund for maintenance of trees. And then in addition, there is a tree planting program that the Tree Commission has that is a remove and replace of dying trees. to replant ones in those same locations, and they have funds available to them for that. So I think what you're hinting at is already addressed, but it is limited to what 25% of what the general fund budgets for tree maintenance.
Right, and I guess that's what I may be asking, because there are trees that are in certain areas, but they need to be maintained. And so that's like, cutting the trees back, making sure they're maintained. And I'm not really sure if the budget is big enough to do that in the city. So I'm asking, I guess, one, is it enough? And maybe is it the public works that take care of that, or what? Because I see a lot of trees that need some pruning and need some help. So I'm just wondering, how does that work? Or do we have someone that goes around the city that does that? Can you give me a little bit more information?
Through the chair to Councilmember Pittman, and I might ask Public Works to come up and chime in because they're going to be more familiar with this, but it is Public Works staff that does either staff or contractors that do the pruning of trees. As it relates to if that funding is enough, and I believe Ms. Stefopoulos and Ms. McGillis were just discussing this, the 25%, I'm not sure if it came as a result of the lawsuit or if we're limited to the 25% because of the lawsuit. But if the general fund contributes more money to tree maintenance, then the tree fund can also contribute more money to tree maintenance. But as it relates to whether or not that's enough, I'd have to defer to legal and so that we don't cross the line of why we got sued in the first place.
Okay. I just want to make sure, because I understand we may be losing money as well from that line item budget, and I just want to make sure we have enough to take care and maintain the beautification of those trees in Jacksonville. Is anyone here?
I think it's part of the budget process that we can impact.
Okay, I want to go on record, because we've been talking about it for years, since you were chair on there, and I want to make sure this year, if that's an opportunity that we can do, I'd like to make sure we
the more money, as I understand, the more money put in by the administration that we approve for tree maintenance, the more the tree commission their 25% goes up. Go ahead, sir.
Yes, sir. Steve Long, Public Works, and that's 100% accurate, as the chairman said. Through the chair to Councilmember Pittman, as the chairman said, and as Philip expressed, yes, as we do work on tree maintenance, we do have that 25% match. So if we get additional money budgeted through budget processes or through transfers or things of that nature, then we can also increase that 25% match as it goes. Not the percentage, but the actual raw dollars.
Okay, I just want to make sure, so when we start discussing budget, that is included. Thank you so much.
Okay, I have two speakers here, and then we're going to vote on this amendment. We have a long agenda, and we have a 12:30 meeting as well. So, Mr. Howland. And then we'll conclude with Mr. Diamond.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Over to Mr. Peterson. Does this bill increase the cap for the city?
Through the chair to Councilmember Howland, the answer is no.
The answer is no. Okay. Then I'm okay with leaving 1A in there. A little listening to all these comments, I mean, a factor of determining how quickly we plant trees might indeed be the staff and the arborists that we have to plant them. But that doesn't mean we have to increase staff for that, as government is always apt to do if they have a problem. How many members or how many FTEs does Public Works have? Do you know offhand? Well, regardless, my guess is there's a whole bunch. If the will of council is to plant more trees, then Public Works can redirect an FTE to be an arborist rather than hiring more. So I'm glad that this bill is substituted, which I absolutely support, doesn't increase the number of FTEs in the city, actually allows some use to reimburse the city for it. So there could be a general fund benefit if we make it so by not allowing Public Works to increase FTEs for this, but rather redirect an FTE, particularly when we're probably looking at a next council year with generally flat revenues. We should probably generally have flat FTEs and cap numbers for the city. You have an answer, Mr. Peterson?
Through the chair to Councilmember Howland, 296.
Yeah, I'm sure out of 296, one more could probably be redirected as an arborist of sorts. So, all right, that's all I have. I will not support the amendment, but I absolutely appreciate the conversation and the spirit behind it.
Mr. Diamond, to conclude.
Yeah, I can count. So, just to be clear, and this, look, I love the spirit of the bill of getting more trees planted. I'm fully tracking it. It's just a policy distinction here. So I do think this will open the door to one of two things, right? Either we're going to get new FTEs, or we're going to shift money around and do a shell game such that Public Works will reassign an FTE and open up money to do something else somewhere else. So that's my issue. So I'll vote for my amendment, which will go down in flames, and then I'll support the bill. But let's be clear. This does increase the size and scope of government. It does do that. And so it's really hard to say that you're interested in cutting that when you're opening the door to getting it bigger. And then on the second piece of this is that if we're collecting too much money in the tree fund, then we're collecting too much money in the tree fund. And this actually hurts people. So if you buy a property in Jacksonville and it's covered with trees and you tear down trees, you have to pay tree mitigation, right? That gets passed on to a brand new homeowner. So why don't we collect less money from these people who are trying to live in their first homes very often than collecting $20 extra million in the tree fund? That would be that would be my solution to this issue, which is to return the money to the people who are paying it. So thank you.
All those in favor of the Diamond Amendment, please raise your hand. All those opposed, please raise your hand. Okay, the amendment fails. So we now have the NCPA substitute on the table. I have no one else in the queue. It's a vote, and then okay. All those in favor of the NCSPHS substitute, please indicate by saying aye. All those opposed, please say nay. Okay. I've got a motion and a second to move the bill as substituted. I have no one in the queue. Please open the ballot, record the vote.
Eight yeas, 0 nays.
By your vote, you've approved 2025-102. If you'll turn to item, in order to accommodate Councilmember Joe Carlucci.
This is an easy one.
186, which is on page
7.
Page 7. I have a motion and a second on the bill. I have no one in the queue. Please open the ballot, record the vote.
Eight yeas, 0 nays.
By your vote, you've approved 2025-186. Okay, I have one other bill out of order. That's 193.
Thank you, guys. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. That's on page 12. I'm sorry. I have a motion and a second on the bill. I have no one in the queue. Please open the ballot, record the vote.
Eight yeas, 0 nays.
By your vote, you've approved 2025-193. Okay, we'll go back to the start of the agenda. Item number 1, 2024-627 is deferred. Item number 2, 2024-966 is deferred. Item number 3, 2024-993 is deferred. Item number 4, 2025-11 is deferred. Item number 5, we just dealt with. Item number 6, 2025-138 is deferred. Item number 7, 2025-175 is deferred. Item number 8, 2025-181. I have a motion and a second on the bill. On the amendment, excuse me. Motion, Mr. Peterson, on the amendment.
Through the chair of the committee, the amendment will attach a revised Exhibit 1, which is the BT, to correct the revenue account, and then also set aside the funding for its specified use of maintenance of the art within Lift Every Voice and Sing Park. Clarify the appropriation language as it relates to the revenue source that's not coming from an independent agency, and then strike references to Chapter 118 and clarify that funds will be dispersed at the request of the Cultural Council.
All those in favor of the amendment, please indicate by saying aye. All those opposed, please say nay. Amendment passes. I have a motion and a second on the bill as amended. No one in the queue. Open the ballot, record the vote.
Eight yeas, 0 nays.
By your vote, you've approved 2025-181. Item number 9, 2025-182. Wait a minute, hang on a second. Ms. Pittman?
Chair, I'd like to abstain from this legislation because I'm the CEO and president of the Claire White Mission, and my staff may be applying for these funds. And I will make sure that legislation paperwork is put in. Thank you.
I think we had a motion and a second on the bill. We did. I have no one in the queue. Please open the ballot, record the vote.
Seven yeas, 0 nays, 1 abstention.
By your vote, you've approved 2025-182. Moving on. Item number 10 is deferred by me. Well, I think that some additional dialogue needs to occur between the council and the DIA and the developer there. Number 11, 2025-185. I have a motion and a second on the amendment. All those in favor of the amendment? Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Peterson. Go ahead, please.
Through the chair of the committee, the amendment will attach a revised Exhibit 1, which is the amendment to the agreement with UF Health to clarify that the patient 90-day grace period for which they can apply for Medicaid will be limited to once in a 12-month period, and then also clarify that when a patient is under that 90-day grace period and they fail to provide their Medicaid denial letter or are denied Medicaid because of an application error, their services that they are provided will be charged to the Shands financial policy, not the city charity account.
All those in favor of the amendment, please indicate by saying aye. All those opposed, please say nay. Amendment passes. I have a motion and a second on the bill as amended. Please open the ballot, record the vote.
Eight yeas, 0 nays.
By your vote, you've approved 2025-185. We dealt with item number 12 already. Item number 13, 2025-187. I have a motion and a second on the bill. Please open the ballot, record the vote.
8 yeas, 0 nays.
By your vote, you have approved 2025-187. That's in Arlington. Be careful, Councilmember. Only joking. Item number 14, 2025-188 is deferred. Item number 15, 2025-190. I would ask, yeah, I have a motion and a second on the neighborhoods amendment. Yes, Mr. Peterson.
Yes, sir. Through the chair, the neighborhoods amendment is just item 1 on your agenda to attach a revised CIP sheet to correct the prior year funding amount.
Okay. I have no one in the queue on the amendment. All those in favor of the amendment, please indicate by saying aye. All those opposed, please say nay. The amendment passes. I have a motion and a second on the bill as amended. I have Mr. Diamond in the queue.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to vote yes on this today. I support UF Health. This is important stuff, and I support my council colleague, Terrence Freeman, in leading the charge on this, as he has for UF Health and all that stuff going on over there for a long time. My only issue is that we're tapping into this JEA money, and it really frustrates me. And so even though I'm going to vote yes, I really think that money ought to have been returned to the ratepayers rather than just spent by the city, because I do think it's a backdoor tax. But this is a very worthy cause, so I'll vote yes.
Ms. Norris, and I'm going to speak afterwards.
Thank you, Chair. If I might ask if we could have Angela Moyer from our budget office come up and speak to the handout that she provided.
She can. She indicated to me that she just wanted us to have it and
Okay.
did not need to speak, but if she'd like to speak, I don't want to prevent her from speaking.
Good morning, Angela Moyer, Budget Office. Through the chair to the committee, I just wanted everyone to have the handout available that shows the original agreement that was approved back in 2023, so that you can see the current terms of the agreement that we have with them, as well as any just documentation so that everyone is aware after the conversation that was had yesterday at the beginning of NHS BSS.
Thank you, Ms. Moyer.
You're welcome.
I just wanted to make a couple comments. These dollars were committed by this city council to be included in the 23-24 budget. They obviously were not included in the budget, and that's why we're here today. I'm very frustrated by that. If y'all recall, we had $47 million in reserve spending that we cut out of that budget, and yet this was not included in that budget. I don't believe UF Health should suffer from whatever happened during that process, why it was not put into the budget. But it's very frustrating to me that we'll have a bill coming up where some other dollars were not included in the budget that were committed to an entity. So I'm going to support it. I've always been a supporter of UF Health, worked there 40 years ago, and but doing it with quite a bit of frustration. I have no one else in the queue. Please open the ballot, record the vote.
8 yeas, 0 nays.
By your vote, you've approved 2025-190. Mr. Councilmember Freeman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and through the chair to my colleagues. Thank you so much for the support of this. I believe it was really a simple cleanup, but given kind of the challenges that have been presented, I wanted to recommend or make a recommendation to this group that as we move forward, we still have, I think it was $14 million that we committed in last year's budget to go towards the repairs, renovations, and the emergency room, the trauma center. If there might be a consideration of asking for the finance department to give us a report, maybe monthly, quarterly. The one thing that I am aware of, and all of you are aware of, is the longer that that an organization or company waits to order supplies, the more expensive they get. So the cost increases are a direct result in some cases because of the timeline of when things are being purchased. So by getting them these dollars, they're able to now start making those orders. We know that there's a runway. There's an extended runway after you order it for it to be shipped and delivered. So that $14 million that you, your council president year, added to these dollars will put us in the right posture. And so I think that we need assurance as we move forward, some accountability that it'll be Councilman Carrico, that maybe we ask for them to come and give us a report, whatever frequency he feels best, to give us an update of where we're at on monies leaving from the city and going towards UF to complete this project.
Yeah, Councilmember, I think we probably need to talk to Councilmember Freeman or the next finance chair, and as you said, to get that done. Okay. No one else in the queue? Let's move on. Item number 16, 2025-191 is deferred, as I indicated at the beginning of the meeting. Sure you can. I'm sorry. You asked me to do that.
Thank you, Finance Chair. Now, I'm okay with the deferment. Just wanted to point out we had a few speakers from the Public Service Grant Council. I am the liaison, so even though I was the introducer, it's really on behalf of the work they've done. It's been 4 to 5 months now. They've been working on those recommended changes. They did reach out to everyone back in March. It was introduced. They did have 5 meetings between the Rules and Finance Committee members. So I'd encourage you to try to meet with them in the next 2 weeks. At the next meeting, we have to get this done one way or another. Otherwise, nothing in that legislation will go into effect on this one grant cycle. The Cliff Note version, really the biggest change to this was previously if you had 2 separate programs, you could apply and potentially win within one category. So we have a couple nonprofits, even though there's 3 categories, they're winning 4 or 5 grants. So that was the big change. Yesterday at Rules, Councilmember Miller introduced an amendment that changed the maximum amount per category from 150 to 100. And I think that's what a lot of the phone calls were due to, Councilmember Salem. But I just wanted to point out that most of the work that the council did, it doesn't take a long time to review. I'd encourage you to meet with them. And then just bottom line, if we don't approve this at the next committee meeting, they'll go a whole year before they can put their requested rule changes into effect. Thank you.
Yeah, I think the administration put the word out that the council had changed that, and I was the chair of the next committee, so I got all the phone calls. Councilmember Freeman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Councilmember Lane, for your good work. It makes me want to request to be the liaison next year. to be a part of it, only because there was information brought up during this conversation that caught me off guard a little bit, which kind of swayed my vote to support us being more conservative and adding some quote-unquote guardrails, which the discussion led later to say that it is a ceiling of 150 already. But I want this body to know, I did reach out to the chair of PSG this morning to ask the question of, one, was anyone on the council in 2022 when I filed legislation for the pilot program for the microgrant, the MVP category? And to her recollection, she could not recall. I said, well, thank you for sharing that, because if you had been, you would have known that how I crafted and how the OGC helped me draft it was to meet their concerns. So they took the spirit of what I was trying to do in creating a fourth category, and they catered it to theirs. And their biggest concern was, we do not want extra work. So then, meeting with Joey Gravy, there was an FTE position that was created, and it happened to be a former ECA of Councilmember Brenda Priestley Jackson, who was assigned as a case manager. So when they said there was no plan, there is a plan, and I had the legislation printed up, and I gave it to the chair today. And that plan was that FTE was going to work with, we had $200,000 in the budget, 20 new nonprofits throughout the course of the year, one-time dollars, and then they have to go and compete on their own. 20 of them at either 10,000, or it could have been 10 at 20,000, however the numbers came in. So there was a plan in place. And so why I was frustrated is the chair had no knowledge of the legislation. And so they spent, and I told them, I respect all the work you've done, but to come now with the same principle, the same kind of outline, say you're going to rename it because now they're going to get dollars from the administration. I love that. I said, if you're going to get money from them, that's fine, but I created it so that there was no pressure on a future administration to have to fund it, and that if it were the will of an individual on this council, we would advocate for it, we'd fight for it, and we'd try to get 9 other people to join us. So I asked, do you have the confidence that the mayor's office administration is going to fund this? Because it's going to basically create another bucket, and we're going to add more dollars to public service grants. And they weren't quite sure of that just yet. So my heartburn with this piece of legislation is, in the academic world, we call it plagiarizing a little bit. When you're taking the work and time and effort that someone put into it, and now you're claiming it as your own. And there are many similarities in what I've started and what I see in it. And they never once reached out to me to say, hey, council member, can you join in? What I heard was we've been trying to meet with you. And the last meeting, I think request was November 21st is when we did meet. And then I will say that my assistant says that we did reach out to try to meet another time, and they were unable to meet. I'm willing to meet with them. I'm willing to be the liaison because I am a huge believer. I'm a nonprofit guy. 14 years serving as an administrator in a nonprofit. Worked at the Boys and Girls Club. Was the CEO of Read USA. My dad was a pastor. Mom was a social worker. I mean, this is my heart. This is where I'm at. And so to be left out of this conversation, I guess because I didn't meet a certain timeline, was a little disturbing.
Councilmember Howland.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So let me ask, the deferral was requested by Councilman Lehman? No, it was requested by Mr. Freeman?
No,
Oh, you requested it?
I did.
And
in consultation with Councilmember Lehman.
Oh, okay. And Councilman Freeman, you prefer the deferral so you can get more information before you vote on this bill again?
Through the chair to Councilman Howland, I'll support the chair's decision on whatever he decides.
All right. I mean,
I was unaware of that it was being deferred.
Yes, sir. And through the chair, I'm totally fine with the deferral. It's just if the only thing hanging this up is the 150 move to 100, I'll bet you we could work that out really, really quick and then move this on. But I'll do whatever you.
Yeah, I prefer to defer it because I said at the beginning of the meeting as well, a lot of people left. So I'd rather not get into a discussion. If we can kill 2 birds with 1 stone and get Councilmember Freeman's issues resolved in the next 2 weeks as well, that would be great. Let me conclude with Councilmember Lehman.
Thank you, Chair. And just to the committee again, yes, I am okay with the deferral. I just want to make the point again. I'm the liaison here trying to push the legislation. Like a lot of their members, I was not on when your legislation was introduced. So I apologize that I didn't know about it either to be incorporated. But if we don't approve it next time, I just want to reiterate it that we will wait a year. And again, these are volunteers trying to do their best work to make changes better for the nonprofit community in Jacksonville. So I want to make sure that their work is recognized and that we approve it in some form or another. And also, Councilmember Howland, I did a lot of math last night, and I was going to do an amendment for $125,000 this morning. Thank you. But we'll see where that takes us. We may have more input from other council members between now and next meeting.
Councilmember Freeman.
Hey, thank you. And I also want to bring to the forefront of everyone's mind, in the last council meeting, we supported a JSEB initiative that allows JSEBs to compete as nonprofits. All right, so now we've actually increased capacity for nonprofits to participate in contracts that the city offers as a member of the JSEB community as well. So this body is doing a tremendous job in trying to provide more opportunities. I look forward to Councilman Harris as he leads this next commission. I talked with Mr. Grant, and it was like I'm passing the mantle on for small businesses as well. So I see a great future ahead for small businesses, for nonprofits now that can operate in public service grant lane, or they can operate and apply for finance or for grants through JSEBs. So what we've done is we've broadened the scope. So I'm not sure what the narrative will be when we leave from here, because we know this space up here, there are always those that are looking to get the clicks or make the comments, but we're doing a great work up here, and I'm going to continue to fight for nonprofits, fight for small business. Thank you.
Thank you. Council members, if you'll turn to page 12, item number 17, 2025-192. I have a motion and a second on the bill. I have no one in the queue. Please open the ballot, record the vote. Everybody's leaving.
6 yeas, 0 nays.
By your vote, you've approved 2025-192. We have dealt with item 18 already. I'm turning to page 13, item number 19, 2025-206. I have a motion and a second on the rules amendment. I'd like to say something first. I was listening to the discussion yesterday, and I was cheering on Councilmember Howland's debate, and I was glad it passed. But on reflection, I'm a little concerned that we have to vote in order to apply things towards the CBA. And I had a discussion in the agenda meeting this morning with the auditors as well as Ms. Stafopoulos. I had to pause there. And it seems to me, and I've asked them, and I want to get the committees, is in bills that coming forward that are involved in those four items, homelessness, affordable housing, workforce housing, and workforce development, those bills should be flagged. And as a part of the approval of that bill through the council, it should be applied to the CBA. And that language should just be included so that we don't have to go through this every time a bill comes up, voting on it separately. And if it's a bill through the administration, through one of our council members, which is the only way it can be introduced, that it be flagged so that we do include an amendment, if need be, to have that applied to the CBA. So that's my thinking. I'd like to get some feedback just on that. So let me go to Councilmember Arias.
Thank you, Chair. And yes, I watched the video last night. Good work on that, Councilmember Howland. To piggyback off of what you're saying, Chair, is we pass legislation or we approve CBA dollars once every quarter, once a month, whenever it happens. The thing is, we're not tracking it, and I know the auditors are tracking it. So I would love to see a report after. Just for like last night's example, I would like to see what the total is now that we've contributed towards the CBA, so we can see where we stand. So
they have started a chart.
Okay, you started the chart. Perfect. Okay, thank you.
Now, and can I make one other point? I don't mean to interrupt you. The Jaguars when we had this discussion during the CBA discussion, wanted to ensure we were not taking old dollars or anything and applying it to the CBA. So this is going forward. This is all new legislation. For example, the homeless dollars that we are spending with JFRD and such was approved before the agreement. The agreement was just signed recently, I'm told, in the last week or so. So that's why those dollars cannot be included in the CBA. So it's bills going forward.
Perfect.
Okay, and please continue.
No, that will be it. Just I would like to see a report myself, a physical report, just so we could keep track of it, all of us in Finance Committee. Thank you.
Anybody else on what I just said? Councilmember Lanen.
Thank you, Chair, and I support that as well. I mean, I think we need something like the DIA tracker that has COJ at the top, Jaguars at the bottom, to show both sides are meeting that. Because, again, I'll remind everyone, I had the amendment to spread it out over 33 years, which ultimately failed. But as soon as we hit that $40 million for countywide, our commitment's done. And I think we're going to also use that capacity. I mean, that's what's going to be there for nonprofits, a lot of other use in the next few years. And that'll help our guide decisions as well when we're looking at the budget as far as should that be CBA or something outside of that. So I think having something like that, similar to that we do for DIA and OED, will be very helpful, as well as helping us make wise decisions. Because my concern, kind of like some DIA projects have stacked up in the same year, we may have CBA committed funding stack up in the same year as well that we then have to plan around.
Okay. Again, I'm taking comments on the chart. Councilmember Diamond, are you on the chart? You're on the amendment. Okay. Councilmember Freeman, are you on the chart or the amendment? You're on the amendment. Okay. Councilmember Arias, you're on the chart. Okay.
Not the chart, but similar to the conversation right now. One more thing, Chair, is that, obviously these dollars are the countywide dollars that Mr. Holland is allocating or pulling from. Last night I went to a community meeting in the East Side with the members of the East Side, and one thing that I want to be very clear about this is the fact that while we are working at capacity for the county, and we could also obviously tap into East Side dollars, my focus would be to leave the East Side dollars how it is right now. Leave the $40 million for them, and if we have to talk about East Side dollars potentially, and we're going to pull from that, let's have that conversation with the East Side community versus just us, because ultimately they need to have a voice whenever we're tapping into those dollars. So all I ask is that countywide dollars, homelessness dollars, workforce housing, all that is great and dandy, but East Side dollars, let them be in the East Side for now until we have the conversation. And Council President White, I will be reaching out to you about potentially starting the CBA 3.0 as discussed a couple months ago, because that conversation is already starting with the community, and we need to now finish it up with the council members. Thank you.
Yeah, I just would remind you, Councilman Arias, some of us fought to get more money toward the East Side for that very reason, because I believe that was the whole idea behind a CBA originally, and it got blown up into something much larger. If we don't do something for the East Side through this, then we have failed, clearly. Okay, so now we're back on the rules amendment. Does anyone want to speak? Yeah, Councilmember Diamond on the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have an amendment to the amendment, which is to remove the esports arena. And let me explain the reason why I'm making this amendment. Right now, the way this is set up as a capture bill, it forces council members who may support JFRD, which I do, absolutely, and I'm sure everybody does, and who may not support the esports arena to vote on one bill, right? We've never really done that here. Maybe on budget night, that's been a thing. But this is the dirty pool that they do up in D.C., where they call something the Violence Against Women Act, and then it includes all this gun control stuff. And so it forces people to take votes they don't want to take. So I'm asking, as just a matter of respect, can we separate these two things, please, today? Take esports arena out. I will be a quiet no on the esports arena and let it go for all time. We can add it to the addendum, the council president can, and then vote as emergency. It's going to take 2/3 anyway, so everything happens the way it is. But I'm asking, please, can we take the esports arena out as a matter of respect to not force me into this vote? Otherwise, I'm coming for this whole thing, and I'm going to be very unhappy. So please, just give me that option to just be a quiet no on esports. We can add it to the addendum, have an emergency, get it all done, everybody gets their money, but I'm not forced into a vote that I think is wrong. That's my motion.
Well, I know there's a timing issue on the esports dollars Mr. President, are you, if we separate it here, are you willing to accommodate all that on the addendum as an emergency, et cetera?
If y'all decide to separate that, I will put it on the addendum, yes, if that's the question.
Okay. Well, let me go to Ms. Staphopoulos to see how we could accommodate Councilmember Diamond.
To the chair, so currently you have pending on the floor the motion and second on the rules amendment, which contemplates a number of things related to the esports program. So what I would recommend is if you want to table that motion or allow that motion to be withdrawn and then take up the Diamond Amendment, which would remove from the bill the esports appropriation, take that up, and then we can go back to the rules amendment and only take up those items that were unrelated to the esports program. And then you can approve those other technical items not related to the esports program, and we would have a revised Exhibit 1 to reflect the removal of the esports program. So if that's what you would like to do, then I would consider, if you are all amenable to tabling the rules amendment and withdrawing that motion for now, and there's no objection to that, and then you can move the Diamond Amendment, which would be to amend the bill to remove the esports program appropriation.
Okay. Who made the rules amendment motion? Go ahead, Councilmember Freeman.
Thank you. Through the chair to Councilmember Diamond, do you have a priority? Because we know where you stand on the vote. I should say through the chair to either the council president or the chief powers. Do you have a preference on if JFRD is voted on today or if it's voted on next week? But I know that you're going to be a no, Councilman Diamond. I've kind of shared where I am on this. I'm not as excited about it. I think they should ask for more, and we should be able to do more for our state university here locally, just as we're showing love for UF, as we're showing love for EWU. But I do know that if you know where you're at, it's gone through other committees, and other people have kind of stated where they're at. If this is a pressing need for JFRD, and I wanted to ask Chief Powers or Councilmember White, through the chair to Councilmember White, is it a problem if we were to switch the two and take the UNF vote today and add the JFRD as an emergency? And I should ask the person that made the amendment, would you have heartburn with that?
Through the chair to Councilman Freeman, I would prefer to make sure JFRD moves forward. That's just Rory speaking. And then add it on the addendum. And just to be clear, I'll vote for the emergencies for all this stuff. I'll be no obstruction. I think this will happen.
Okay, so to clarify, so come Tuesday, when this is voted on, and if it's signed Tuesday night by the mayor, they still get their money. They're just not getting told today. I'm just kind of make sure. Or is there going to be a cycle?
Through the chair to Councilman Freeman, if Council President White puts it on the addendum as an emergency to be voted on that night, there is absolutely no lost time. It's just two separate votes.
Yeah, it's less than a week.
Thank you. And so I know we had some people from UNF here in the audience, and just wanted to make sure they kind of understood the mechanics of what's happening here. And I do support the discussion that we're having.
If I can just add something, I voted against this in committee yesterday. As I was concerned about just the way this occurred. As I stated yesterday, this is another, in my mind, mistake. The administration committed $5 million to UNF. And the night before the budget address, they got a call that said it's out. And that was with, y'all remember, $10 million in homeless money, $10 million in affordable housing, $47 million in deficit in reserve spending, yet this $5 million for UNF was removed. Now, they have come back asking only for $2 million, as they have identified $3 million privately that they're going to raise for this. So I am not going to add an amendment. I have come around to go ahead and supporting this, but will do my best to accommodate Councilmember Diamond in this situation. So,
I move to withdraw the rules amendment.
Okay, and second, is that sufficient?
Okay, so with respect to the rules amendment, Councilmember Howland offered that. He's indicated he would withdraw it. If there's no objection from the committee, you don't have to take a vote on the withdrawal of the motion. So what you would do is Diamond would move his amendment, You could get a second on that and then vote on the Diamond Amendment.
And the Diamond Amendment, it's just
To remove the
JFRD.
esports program from the bill.
Okay.
So you need a motion and a
Would you like to
second.
speak? Please.
Can we get a motion and a second on the Diamond Amendment?
Okay, for the sake of discussion. Wait, can I go to Ms. Pittman first? I think she's got a recusal. Let's get that on the table.
Again, out of caution until I get an opinion, I'd like to abstain from this vote right now because of the homeless that I work with at the Clara White Mission, and I'll make sure that we do the paperwork for it. Thank you.
Your concern is on the UNF portion, not on the fire department portion.
Through the chair, to the chair, that is correct. So if the motion to remove the esports program is approved, then she will not have a conflict on the bill.
You'll have a
for
conflict
committee?
Tuesday night.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, sir. I just want to put it on record.
I got you. I got you. Okay, so we have a motion and a second on the Diamond Amendment. Mr. Arias.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Now, while we'll support my colleague, Councilmember Diamond, on this request, just as long as everybody understands where we voted during committee yesterday and today, that if we were to pull apart UNF and JFRD and potentially another amendment that I will be making at some point today, that we all stick to our initial votes and support or not support. If we're not going to support UNF, that's fine, but we want to make sure that we do right by UNF, and if we're doing this, I just don't want to scare them right now in this position. So I'm in support of Diamond's amendment. Secondly, I'm supportive of splitting them up right now, yes. I'm not supporting what Diamond is trying to do, but I am supporting of splitting it up. Secondly, through the chair, I do want to offer another amendment that I'm not sure how this would play into that. But before I offer this amendment, I overheard something yesterday during neighborhoods meeting. I was a guest, and so was Councilmember Freeman. And Councilmember Freeman mentioned something about summer programming for students and how there's about 800 and something students that will not be served this year in the summer. Mr. Freeman, if you could elaborate on that a little bit more, and then I'll make my amendment, if anything. Thank you.
Wait a minute. Would that be attached to this bill?
To the chair. So we need to dispose of the motion on the floor before we start talking about other amendments. With respect to amending to add a separate appropriation relative to after-school programming, what I'm going to tell the committee is if that occurs, then you'll need to re-refer the bill because that is a substantive change that the public wasn't notified of when this bill was filed. So you would be adding a totally different appropriation unrelated to anything already in the bill. You can file a separate bill to utilize the funds if the esports program gets carved out and not approved, but that is, I'm just giving you an understanding of what my guidance would be. But before you do any of that, I would recommend the committee dispose of the Diamond Amendment that's on the floor.
That's a verbal vote. Okay. All those in favor of the Diamond Amendment, please indicate by saying aye. All those opposed, please say nay. Okay. Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't see you. Before we vote on the amendment, please.
Okay, thank you, Chair. And just to my colleagues, I'll be on no on this. Similar to what you said, Councilmember Diamond, you don't agree with everything in here. I absolutely agree with it. My dad was a JFRD firefighter that went to UNF, that is now in my district, so I approve everything. So I'll be a no on your amendment, but I hope we all get to a place to where on the same cycle we were expecting, we can get this money for UNF.
Okay, all those in favor of the Diamond Amendment, please indicate by raising your hand. Four to two? Okay, so the Diamond Amendment passes. Okay, now we're back on the JFRD portion of this, correct?
So, Mr. Chair, there were still other portions of what was the rules amendment that the committee would want to take up, and I'll let Mr. Peterson explain those, and then if somebody wants to move it, it would be the finance amendment that's being moved to address the other technical corrections to the bill.
Through the chair to the committee, so if you're looking at page 14, my page 14 of your agenda that identifies the rules amendment, we still need to move item number 1 to correct the fiscal year of appropriation. Still need to move number 2 to clarify the appropriation addresses the negative cash balances in the two funds that have negative cash as of September 30th of 24. We would need to attach a revised Exhibit 1 to BT to reflect that removal of the esports arena and then correct Scrivener's errors.
Is there a second? All those in favor of the finance amendment, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, please say nay. Okay, finance amendment passes. Okay, we will roll those up into one amendment. I heard something. Yes. Move the bills. I have a motion and a second to move the bill as amended. Mr. Freeman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and to my colleague through the chair, to Councilman Arias. Thank you so much, Thank you so much for bringing that up again. And one of the common responses yesterday was process. Councilmember Miller talked about process. There were several others that just said, we agree with the contents of this bill or the substance of the bill. We're not as happy or excited about the process of it. What we're about to appropriate are funds that were recaptured, and I commend Councilmember Layden, who called this back during our budget time. But now that we have, and this is again why I was saying we try to keep money in our little, what's it called, council contingency fund. Now we have what I would consider somewhat of a crisis, which was something that was very common to the council 10 years ago. And back then it was Councilmember Brown that would fight hard to make sure that these kids had a place to go in the summer so that they're not out roaming the streets, throwing rocks. Instead, they're in some program throwing football and getting resources to help them with conflict resolution. These dollars could have been used for that. And so I am fully supportive of JFRD. And so I'm going to support it, but now we're going to have an ask coming to this body in the near future of whatever that number is per student times the dollars per student times the number he gave, and we're going to have to figure out what we do to try to make it right by these kids so they have a place to go in the summer.
Councilmember Arias.
Thank you, Chair. So the number of students is roughly 860 students. The dollar amount per students, I'll figure it out now, but it's roughly $600,000 is the ask, potentially. And so these recaptured dollars, first of all, they are recaptured dollars. They're neutral to the budget, right? It doesn't affect us at all. My proposal, which I guess we cannot make anymore at this point, being in the position that we're in right now, is the fact that in this bill, we could have addressed three things. Public safety with JFRD building, renovating 2 new stations, or renovating 2 stations and creating a new PPE wash station. The second would be a public university for UNF and their STEM initiatives. And then the third would have been serving underserved students and mentorship, right, through summer camp programming. And we still can, right? So my ask was going to be, let's work with JFRD. We've supported JFRD so many times in the past. And so my ask to JFRD is, hey, can you work with us to help make sure that these students have a place to go in the summer? We're looking for about $600,000. And if we could pull $600,000 from this 4.6 that JFRD is getting right now, that will serve 3 pillars of our community, 3 very important pillars. So, Ms. Sofopoulos, guide us. What can we do? I want to make sure that even if we have... And look at the back of the room. There you go. That's exactly it right there. So my request would be this, all right? If we have to, being that it needs to be publicly noticed and all that kind of stuff that you mentioned, obviously you work the details, if we could pull aside from this piece of legislation right now, $600,000, put it in a pocket somewhere, in a pot, and then later on address this and use those recaptured dollars for that, is that something we could do today?
Through the chair to Councilmember Arias. So yes, if you wanted to, you could reduce the appropriation that's going, so we've carved out the esports program, and that'll be filed as a separate piece of legislation. You can reduce the remaining appropriation to JFRD, which is, I think, a scenario you mentioned in this bill, and have it set aside, and it would be out there for you to then file a separate bill to address the after-school programs. The other option you have is you can amend this legislation to use $600,000 from what's left in the bill. If you wanted to take it from the JFRD portion, you could. If you wanted to take it from what was going to go to esports program, you could do that. If you do that amendment to this bill to then add the after-school programs, that's where I was saying when this bill was filed, the public wasn't put on notice that the after-school programs were contemplated. So my recommendation would then be, if that amendment passes, that it be then that council would then re-refer it back to committees so it could be re-advertised and the public put on notice of that additional substantive change to add that appropriation for after-school programs, and then it would come back to council after further committee action. The other option you have is to file a separate bill, put it on the addendum, or file it for regular cycle using $600,000 of what came out for the esports program, and then we would just address what the balance was for esports in the esports bill. So there's a number of different scenarios that you could use with respect to how you fund using money from this bill towards the after-school programs.
Thank you for that. So just to be clear, it wouldn't be from esports, it would be from JFRD. I want to make sure that JFRD Chief Powers, if you don't mind, just coming up to the podium.
If I can, I've got President White on the queue, and I've been waiting to recognize him.
Sure. So then my last point would be that being that this is for summer programming, I don't mind coming back to this later on at some point. We don't have to address this right now, but whatever makes sense right now. Thank you.
Well, I have my own feelings, but I want to hear from the president first.
Yes, sir, and I certainly respect Mr. Arias and certainly the people in the back of the room, but these two stations that Chief Powers, and I'll answer for him, but he can also answer, if anybody has visited these two stations that these men and women live in a third of their life, they should have been done 10 or 15 years ago, and I don't see how they can get done. I don't see how they're going to get these two stations brought up with the money he's already asked for. So to cut $600,000 out of those two stations, I think would be a mistake. But I'll let Chief Powers opine if he'd like to.
I don't think he wants to get up.
Okay. That's where I am. But these two stations, it's the two stations I'm familiar with. Should have been fixed a long time ago. Thank you.
Let me make a point. This 7.980286 fell into reserves. Okay? As soon as it was identified as dollars from last year, it fell into reserves. So it's not just hanging out here that we can grab before it hit reserves. It hit reserves. So we are simply reappropriating dollars that hit reserves. So I just want to make that point very clear. It would seem to me if we can come back with a separate bill to address on an emergency basis, because of the summertime, that would appear to be the best way to handle this. If you're okay with that.
Sure. Through the chair, I just want to, at the very least, start the conversation out. But if you want to come back and address this at some point, I'm okay with that. The thing is that the time is of the essence. We are here now. We could address it now. And to Council President White, while I do agree with you, those two stations need to be renovated, and there needs to be a new PPE station. Let's not forget that these were in the CIP, and it's easier to address it through the CIP than actually using reserve dollars for this. I'm not saying that JFRD will not get these dollars. They will get them. It's just a matter of how and when. And if the urgency is right now, then fine. But I don't think the urgency is necessarily right at this very moment, which is why I was actually suggesting to use these dollars now from JFRD. We will address JFRD's need at some point through the CIP or whatever the case is. That's my only thing here is let's kind of tackle three different pillars right now if we can versus two, and then coming back later for one very important pillar, as you saw in the back of the room. Once again, these are CIP dollars initially. It's going to get done regardless. It's not like it wasn't going to get done. It's just a matter of when. Thank you.
Let's hear from Chief Powers.
Keith Powers, Fire Rescue. To the committee, I'll say this. President White mentioned the two stations. They are in desperate need, and that's $2 million apiece. But there's also $692,000 and some change in here for the washroom. And what I will say to this committee, if it's your will, we can make do for the time being. If we're going to come back later and address that at a later point, we can make do to let Councilman Arias use the $600,000 for these children that we saw, in the back of the room. What we do believe, JFRD believes y'all are very generous to this department and to public safety, and we appreciate that. But, investing in children is like an investment in public safety, because that is our future. So we can support that.
That's very gracious of you. So let me go back to Mary to see how we move forward with those comments. And then I've got I'll come back to you, Councilmember Arias.
So to the chair and through the chair to the committee, and I was just addressing this with Councilmember Arias. So to effectuate his intent, and based on the comments from Chief Powers, what this committee could do is an amendment could be offered to reduce the appropriation to JFRD by $600,000. That would be an amendment to this bill. And then Councilmember Arias could do, just as we discussed for the Diamond Amendment, he could file a separate bill for the addendum as an in and out emergency to appropriate the $600,000 towards the after-school programs. And so we would then have two in and out emergency addendum bills on Tuesday.
Mr. President, are you okay with that?
Well, I'll say this, and I certainly expected Chief Powers to say this, but this washroom, as people know, I won't go into statistics, how many firemen get cancer, but if we can kick it down the road a little bit, and that's what he would say, but I would rather have a commitment, even if we take it out of the emergency reserves for the children, but I would like to get this washroom done. I mean, it's the cancer-causing chemicals, and I won't go into all that, and it's something we don't have. That's where I am.
Why can't we just take an extra 600 out of the reserves and do this?
Through the chair, that is always an option. So you would just leave this as it's been moved with the subject to the Diamond Amendment and the other cleanups. If there was I was under the impression discussing scenarios, we were looking at this as the funding source. So if the idea is we just find a different funding source, then that can be a separate bill filed at any time.
So, Mr. Chair, if we made one out of the emergency funds, we ought to make the washroom out of that and give the children this other $600,000, and then let's go ahead and take care of both things that way, because that is an emergency in my opinion, of the wash facility.
Okay, I misunderstood you. I'm sorry. So you're saying...
So the path of least resistance is to move
I'm saying with what Mr. Arias has offered to do that, but then go ahead and get funds out of the emergency reserve to take care of the wash room.
And that'll be easy for you to add to the addendum as an emergency.
So through the chair, then you can just take up the bill as amended that's been moved.
Okay.
And we will work with Councilmember Arias to prepare the requisite legislation for the additional appropriation towards the after-school programs. That is the most efficient path of least resistance to allow the JFRD appropriation to go through with the washroom included that the council president indicated. He then mentioned that the $600,000 from emergency reserves for Councilmember Arias could be handled separately to address the after-school.
I think he said just the opposite.
Okay.
I think he wanted to do the washroom through...
It's all the same. If we file the Arias bill separately as an in and out on the addendum on Tuesday night, it'll be the same thing as just leaving this bill alone and letting the $600,000 on this just go to JFRD. It's all coming, we're taking all the money out of these reserves. So you could, the 600 can come out of here for JFRD or it can come out of after school. I think if you leave the JFRD funding intact, we're going to work with Councilmember Arias for his after school separately.
His amendment had the 600 coming out of JFRD, correct?
He addressed it, but it was never moved.
Okay.
So we're still on the bill as amended by the Diamond Amendment and with the other technical amendments.
Your amendment would put your 600 into this, and the washroom would be handled as an emergency Tuesday night. That's what you want. Is there a second for that? Second. Okay, the auditors have kicked in. Yes, Mr. Peterson.
Through the chair to the committee, totally understand what you're trying to do. The efficiency would be to file a separate bill. Ms. Stafopoulos and I will have to spend a good part of this week rewriting this entire legislation and then crafting new legislation as well that in the end does the exact same thing as just spending time crafting new legislation. We're here to carry out your will, not telling you how to vote, but from an efficiency standpoint of my staff, Ms. Stafopoulos' staff, just approving JFRD in this bill and filing a new bill is the most efficient. So just letting you aware of that.
Who made the motion? Okay, are you withdrawing it?
And yes, I'm removing my motion and keeping the bill as it is, adding on the addendum. Hopefully, Council President will add it to the addendum for Tuesday night to appropriate $600,000 from the reserves to KHA.
Ms. Taylor.
Thank you.
Through the chair, and I always like to mention, just so everyone has the information for your policy decisions, KHA, of course, typically comes back. They were part of the recapture. We recaptured $724,296 that was part of that total approximately $8 million number. So just so you have an idea, it's close to that amount. We always caution these have fallen to reserves. So when you're using, is it to be a recurring program, things like that, that's where you can get tripped up in the budget that you're pulling it back now. Is it an addition? Is it a one-time thing? We try to caution on using the reserves for one-time items, but you'll just need to consider that when you take up the budget in the summer in the event that the mayor does not load something like that in, that you may need to program in those dollars again to continue that program.
Okay. Miss Mary, please tell us where we are so we know what we're voting on.
So with Councilmember Arias being amenable, thank you, to just let us work on the separate legislation, which I think will get everybody's concerns addressed. It will have all the same results on Tuesday night. You have a motion on the bill as was amended by the Diamond Amendment with the additional technical corrections that Philip outlined for you. You're ready to move to the ballot vote when there's no one left in the queue.
I have two in the queue. Are we ready to vote? Mr. President?
The only question I had, I don't want to cause more work on them, but I know we're very, very cautious with using emergency funds. And I thought it was an easier lift for us to support emergency funds for the wash than the other thing, but that's up to y'all. I mean, because there's just 7 or 8 of us here, and I don't want to create, like I said, more work, but I just know we very seldom dip into the emergency funds, and I thought, anyway, y'all take it from there.
I think we're all under the commitment that we're going to do this, at least as I see it. We're all in this together, so to speak. Okay, all those, is this a ballot? No, I asked him. I'm sorry. I thought you said you were okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. No, I just want, first of all, I'm supporting all this. Thank you, everybody, for working together. Love to see that. I'll even vote for using general funds for this stuff, but I just want to point this out, just for purposes of our own edification and spending. We're talking about preventing our firefighters from getting cancer and improving where they live and work, and we're talking about helping kids who are in the back of the room, and the numbers here are so small. And we pass $20, $30, $40 million for developments downtown. Can we just capture that gestalt of that for a second? And remember that money that we just tossed to downtown could be repurposed for kids, stopping cancer, doing all these other good things. It's blowing my mind that we write these huge checks without even slowing. There's no slowdown, and then we have we go 10 rounds over $600,000 for kids. So I had to say it.
Please open the ballot and record the vote.
Seven yeas, 0 nays, 1 abstention.
Your vote you've approved, is it still 2025-0206? And I should tell the UNF people, the only person that voted against this in committee was me, and I'm with you. So hopefully that gives you a comfort level.
So, Mr. Chair, for the benefit of the public, would you just like me to summarize what will occur on Tuesday night, or do you want?
Please.
So what we are going to do is we are going to have the rules amendment that came out of the Rules Committee, and now we have a finance amendment on this bill that'll be up for action on Tuesday night. The President will determine which amendment is the one that's marked to be moved at Council. The amendment that was approved coming out of Finance Committee did a couple of things. It carved out the esports program, so we will file a separate piece of legislation that will be ready for action on Tuesday night on the addendum to address the esports program as a separate piece of legislation. The finance amendment for this bill contemplates removal of the esports program in items 1, 2, 5, and 6 from the list that were on your agenda for what was remaining out of the rules amendment. And then we will also file a separate piece of legislation for Councilmember Arias as an in and out emergency to be added to the addendum that will provide for $600,000 to after-school programs from emergency reserves. So those will all be ready for action on Tuesday night.
Okay, I think we're all clear. Mr. Lane, and you're on the queue.
Thank you, Chair. So two things. First off, great point, Councilmember Diamond. I like to tell everyone that, hey, you look at our budget and roughly 2/3 is public safety plus committed debt expense. What remains, we are going to budget more for downtown cash incentives than we do for our Public Works Department, which is our largest remaining department when you carve out public safety. So great point on that. Regarding UNF, look, I talked about the actual UNF bill a lot yesterday. Please, I hope you still support it. Again, I think it would have been fine if we left it included because it passed committee 5-1 and 7-0. And Councilmember Salem, you said you will support it now with the CBA amendment as well. Because if this gets to a point where it doesn't pass on Tuesday night, we've essentially done what the administration did last year when we thought we had something in the budget for UNF and then the last minute it didn't come to fruition. So look forward to your support.
Okay. Item number 20, 2025-216 is a second reading, as is 2025-217, 2025-218, 219, 221, 224, 225, 226, 227. I believe that concludes all our business. Everyone, our Doge meeting starts at 12:30, so you have roughly an hour to get something to eat. Thank you very much.